So, welcome, Barry Demp, to Ordinary Visionaries. Great to have you here. And I know you've been a coach for a long time. You've been on my list for a long time. We met once many, many years ago, and I forgot. But it's great to have you here and someone that's had such a substantial career in the coaching world. I'm always interested in getting into that and what coaching is about and how it works and how it helps people. So tell me, Barry, how are you an ordinary visionary?
The word ordinary and the word visionary seem to be, a little bit apart from each other. But yeah, like everybody else, I consider myself an ordinary person that, pursues kind of extraordinary things for myself and for other people. And that's probably why the field of coaching was always of great interest to me. I recall always being interested in learning and growing and doing things better. My dad was actually an athletic and fitness coach. So
Oh, really?
when he worked with his classes, he used to do calisthenics 5 times a day with his classes. So he was always interested in
You must have been in good shape.
supporting teams and individuals kind of being their best.
Yeah.
And I always kind of gravitated to that perspective as well. But we put our pants on one leg at a time, and we navigate our professional and personal worlds as best we can. And doing that intentionally is something that we all can do, perhaps better and better as we age and go through life.
Well, hopefully. Uh, you never know. Sometimes things go downhill. But tell me, Barry, how did you get into coaching in the first place? What was your first connection? How did you get started? All of that.
Sure. The story was actually almost somewhat too good to be true. I was working in the pharmaceutical industry as a pharmaceutical sales representative for a company called the Upjohn Company. So if anybody's ever taken kaopectate or Unicap vitamins or a Motrin tablet, you know the company I worked for. And it was a very fine company. And they really had an extraordinary learning and development component, very high integrity company, very family oriented company. And at the same time, as I was navigating my career with them, I found that I kind of woke up in the morning with a little knot in my stomach, kind of like, I don't want to. And it happened to be the year 1992, which was the year of the Barcelona Olympic Games. And I love the Olympics and gold medal performance and being your best and all those stories of great athletes. And I realized that there were 5,000 athletes and there were 2,000 coaches.
2000 what?
There were 5,000 athletes and 2,000 coaches. So I kind
of
did
coaches,
the math.
Isn't it?
Yeah. So by doing the math, I realized that every athlete was pursuing kind of gold medal performance. And they all had coaches, not just some of them. And they all wanted to be their very, very best.
Right.
So it hit me like, what a great idea. But, for 5,000 athletes on a planet with 6 or 7 billion people at the time, it seemed like something more was possible. So when you think about a visionary, what if all people were coached in being their best and pursuing a gold medal life? I wanted that. And I thought, well, maybe other people would want that too. So around that time of 1992, our company offered a buyout. It's one of those, I'll give you a week of pay for every year you got with the company, and we'll give you a second week of pay if you promise not to sue us. So I said, that sounds like a good deal.
Yeah.
And people proceeded to ask me, well, what are you going to do now that you're leaving this company? I said, I'm going to be a business coach. And they proceeded to say, well, what the heck is that? And I proceeded to kind of make it up. So there's this elementary visionary sense of coaching is a great thing. It supports athletes in being their best. Why not bring that to the rest of the world? So when people say, how'd you get into coaching? I kind of thought I invented it back in 1992.
Right.
And it wasn't until 1996 that I actually attended my first coaching conference in Houston, Texas. And at the time, there was about 300 people just kind of making this whole industry up at the time when the Professional Coaching Federation established itself.
Right. So did you get formal training as a coach? How did that go? And who did you work
Yeah,
with?
the ICF offered a great deal of programming and content and things of that sort, so you could get content. But I decided that if I wanted to enter into a particular field, I wanted to be uh, good at it. So they initiated a certification process, and there are three designations for coaches: ACC, PCC, and MCC. So I went along that track and garnered all the credits that I could take, and I put together a portfolio program over the next 3.5, 4 years. And I was the first coach in Michigan to receive a master coach certification. And that's required every 3 years. So if you want to continue your coaching credential, you must recertify every 3 years.
So you have to do testing every 3 years?
It's not so much testing, it's more like core competency credentials and resource development credentials and other things, as well as ethics credentials and things of that sort. So
Okay.
every 3 years, we're required to continue showing our enterprising efforts at continuing our craft.
Right. So who did you decide you wanted to coach? Did you have a target? How did you find your first clients? How did that all work?
I think it really starts out as you. I guess if I was a physician, I would be an internist, and an internist works with, gastroenterology patients and endocrine patients and cardiac patients and all kinds of other areas. And over the course of years of trial and error, I found that I was attracted to both business professionals and people in their careers, and people that had a high degree of integrity and grit and persistence and ethics and morals, and lived by their values and kind of did their best and strived to contribute and make a difference in the lives of others. So there's a fundamental wiring of human beings, that one human being to another human being. And there's also the idea of the great game of business, where my background in sales and marketing and advertising was complementary to that as well. So I
Yeah.
found out that I was working with executives or high potential people, helping people in career transition, starting businesses, or perhaps even transitioning from one role to another role within an organization. I was always interested in people who were highly leveraged, so that they wanted to work on their leadership and their management and their empowered coaching support skills in producing results with and through others. So as you and I both know, coaches are on the sidelines and athletes are on the field.
Right.
And we don't score points. We're not allowed.
Right.
So I'm more than comfortable being on the sidelines, supporting other people in being their best and helping people do that within their organizations and within their careers, and also in their personal lives as family members, whether you're a dad or a spouse or something like that. So that person who's working on this gold medal life, where their career is a fundamental part of it, but also a gold medal life includes their health, it includes their relationship with their significant others, being good dads, brothers and sisters and things of that sort. So each unique individuals could customize a developmental program on what they wanted to work on and what a gold medal life. We just finished the holiday season,
Yes.
and I tell people sometimes I'm Santa Claus. I don't look like Santa Claus, although if I grew a beard, it might be gray, so to speak.
Yeah.
But when I ask people, what do they want, and say, what else? And what else? We really delineate what their yes is. And the gap between where they are and where they'd like to be becomes the journey that we take together.
Good. That makes sense. So let me ask you this question. How do I put this? Often we say, this is what I want. I want to achieve this. I'd like to make more money. I'd like to do these projects. I'd like to make this difference. And what have you found in working with people has been the most profound thing that people have discovered about their life and what they really wanted? Because sometimes, I've got all the symbols. I've got a nice car. I got a great house. I got a family. And my life still sucks. you know?
Well, society has a way of influencing what we think we want.
Yeah,
But as we engage in the process of just aging, if you asked a 50-year-old or a 60-year-old or a 70-year-old, what do they want? It changes a great deal.
sure.
You shift from the external of things to the more of the internal. So a greater sense of well-being, a greater sense of spirit, a greater sense of health, a greater sense of community, the richness of life, the experiences versus the trappings that society says we should want.
Yeah,
So at different points in time, people want to pursue different things, but there usually is a spectrum of outside, inside, and so on. And as you kind of get a little further down the road, they say, life is like a toilet paper roll. The more you get into it, the faster it spins. And we don't have, time for the shitty things in life, as they say. So the idea is each person, wherever they find themselves, they have a sense of, what would truly be rewarding and fulfilling and satisfying. Clay Christensen wrote a book years ago called How Will You Measure Your Life? And I think it's a brilliant title for a book. So when we ask people, how do you keep score? It becomes much more of the subjective and less of the objective aspects of things.
right.
So each person is at a different point in time. I've been coached teenagers all the way to people approaching 80 years old. And because it's unique, it always keeps it interesting and engaging for myself as well when I partner with folks.
So, Barry, how did you attract new clients? You started, you got certified, you knew you had something, you'd figured it out. Who were your first clients and how did you get them? And what was your ongoing process to bring in clients?
Well, when I started coaching, I didn't make a single penny for 3 entire months.
Okay,
And at the
that's not
time, I was
unusual.
moving from Kalamazoo, Michigan to outside of Detroit. And I had a meeting with my new financial advisor. And at the time, he asked me what I did. And I said, I'm a business coach. He says, well, what's that? And this individual was working with a consultant. His name was Maury Sheckman. And I think he wrote a book called Working Without a Net. And at the time, I think he was a coach or consultant for Newt Gingrich. And he was getting very famous. And because he was getting famous, he wasn't able to work with my financial advisor, Michael. So Michael said, that sounds really great. How does that work? And I just kind of proceeded to make it up. He says, that sounds terrific. Let's do that. So
Okay.
Michael was 28 years old. I was about 35 years old at the time. This was a gentleman who had quite the edge on him and really was a gritty, hardworking, determined, persistent young man. And he took it to it like a duck to water. He happened to work at a company called Northwestern Mutual, and they were a very
Sure.
well-regarded insurance company and such. So he was thriving in our relationship, and then he started introducing me to other people within his firm that were not getting the level of customized support that they wanted from their general agent. And that led to other things. My background in sales and marketing and advertising and promotion had me simply step into this idea of the biggest challenge in getting clients was the ignorance and unawareness of coaching. So I actually got an office and I participated within the community, the Chamber of Commerce and various networking groups. I gave talks and speeches and things like that. I read Action Plan Marketing and saw all the wonderful goodies that you put out there.
Right.
Books like Book Yourself Solid or Get Clients Now or Jeffrey Gitomer's work. But it was really a matter of seeing the people, interacting with them, having a sense of where they were on their professional and personal journeys, and identifying somewhat of my own customized discovery process to help them identify, what they were saying yes to, in addition to myself.
So tell me what a client engagement looked like. How did you start? How did you get into things? Did you have a process, or was it very improvisational?
Well, in the beginning, it's improvisational because there's no precedence. There was no other coaches that set the guidelines and the guardrails for how to do that.
Right,
So I'd
right.
like to say that my discovery process was about 5 or 6 pieces of paper. And I would
Okay.
always meet people, and I'd always have those 5 or 6 pieces of paper. So I had a coaching candidate assessment, a coaching readiness assessment, a personal excellence coaching assessment, 6 business coaching questions, and other things that would establish the gap of the reality of an individual, the vision for that person, the path that they were on, and the priorities that they had in the areas they wanted to develop. So from those 5 or 6 pieces of paper, I got my first website, established online assessments, and made the process a lot more automated and a little more formal. I always had a coaching program. I never did anything by the hour. So in the early
Mm.
stages, it might be a 3-month engagement that would have a small workshop up front, followed with weekly coaching, as well as laser coaching support would be what we would call just in time coaching to interact with somebody as necessary. But there would be a rigorous continuity, consistency, methodical nature to what we worked on, and that between coaching sessions, emails or updates or other ways would say, here's where I'm in action, here's where I'm progressing, teaching them how to coach themselves and
Mhm.
make progress when they were stuck or stopped. But that 6-month time frame of which the initial programs were allowed people to produce quantifiable outcomes and results, both professionally as well as personally. And then they had the option to continue or bring this process into their organizations and work with other people to cooperate and collaborate and kind of take it to the next level.
It seems you brought your business background and your professionalism and your organizational skills to it. And it sounds like you had, as they say, you had your shit together, which helps. Not everybody is there in that place. So tell me, what are the what are the key things? I'm not sure how to talk about this, but we all have goals. We all want to get somewhere. We all want something. And on the other hand, we have stuff that stops us. And that's all internal stuff, beliefs, patterns, fears, all of that kind of stuff, often unconscious. We don't realize we're hurting ourselves or holding ourselves back. And so tell me a little bit about, your discovery in that area of what worked to bring people out and get them clear and get them past their stops and their resistance.
Well, that's a great open-ended question. I think the first thing about a coach is I like the phrase that people deserve coaching. They don't need it. They don't need to be fixed. And at the same time, we're all kind of works in progress ourselves. So by being a work in progress myself, in many ways, I kind of set a good example for other people. So I meditate every morning. I exercise every day. I don't eat meat. I do other things. Now, other people don't necessarily want to sign up for that, but they want their version of that. So this idea
Mm.
of, where are they on their developmental journey? I do think that a foundational element of all this is, self-awareness and mindfulness. So that
Right.
phrase, wherever we go, there we are. But there we are with our thoughts and our
Sometimes,
beliefs.
unfortunately.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
at the same time, we get to decide whether we're going to listen to those things. Do they inspire us and empower us to move forward?
Yeah.
But when we simply listen to that inner voice and see what it's saying, does that move us forward, so to speak? And if not, how real and how valid is that, so to speak? So that inner talk, those inner gremlins, as they refer to them as, are useful to observe and to see how they stop us or limit us from moving forward.
Can you give me a story, maybe a few stories about clients you worked with and the kind of the progress you made?
Wow. Gee, I've had the great fortune to work with some really remarkable people.
Great.
I guess the stories, I guess there's a category of stories, and I never expected that this would occur. And at the same time, over the course of these 32 years, I've coached almost 100 other coaches.
Wow.
And that was not a specific market that I ever intended to do. And yet there was this element of being a kindred soul, bringing out the best of others. I guess first and foremost, I wanted that within my family. So I've been fortunate to be married 45 years. I have two wonderful adult children. I attribute my long marriage and my loving relationship with my family to being a coach myself, because you're navigating different stages of life, whether they're toddlers or adolescents, and now I'm pop now. So this idea of being leveraged. So I was on the board of directors of the International Coach Federation for Michigan. I was the founding, or they called me the grandfather or godfather of coaching in Michigan.
Wow.
But I think the thing about that was, helping people, kind of navigate their lives much more intentionally and much more rigorously, and do things and accomplish things better, quicker, and faster. So one of the most satisfying parts of my career has helped other people pursue that within their organizations to create coaching cultures and also establish themselves in a career that is perhaps one of the most rewarding things that I could even imagine, helping people get where they want to go better, quicker, and faster, so to speak. And then obviously, if you think about the International Coach Federation, when I started, the numbers were so low. Maybe there's 50 to 60,000 coaches worldwide. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And yet it's there to support people in their communities to achieve both professional and personal success. And that feels like that's making a dent in the universe. About 14 years ago, I noticed that I really liked the quotes that were coming across the transom of my email. And I would always use those quotes, like, when patterns are broken, new worlds will emerge, or the best things in life are not things. And I would always those are profound, nuggets of wisdom, as they say.
Yeah.
So I started a blog 14 years ago called The Quotable Coach.
The Quotable Coach. I like that.
The Quotable Coach. So I've actually posted 3,300 times, Monday through Friday, over the past 14 years.
So you send something out daily?
5 days a week.
5 days a week.
Yep. So if you went to thequotablecoach.com, you could sign up for free. And Monday through Friday around 7:30 Eastern time, you get a quote, a coaching commentary, and an exercise. So I worked with a writing coach to help me start that off. 3 years after I started the blog, I wrote my first book, which is called The Quotable Coach: Daily Nuggets of Practical Wisdom. So I like the idea of, here's this provocative thing to think about, but what does it mean to me or to you? And what could we do based upon that? And could you deliver that message in under a minute? So this is one of the things that I've done with both subscribers, and also I use social media such as LinkedIn and Facebook to upload that to other people who follow me as well.
That's great. So are you still doing that every day, 5 days a week? Do you do them all at once? Do you think them up the night before?
No, actually, like yourself, sometimes we want a little bit of a backlog, so that if we're not feeling up to par or aren't inspired with a great quote or commentary, that we have a little bit of leeway. I work with an editor that helps me clean up my writing a little bit, and also finds the visuals and the links and things of that sort to help me. And we use a platform called MailChimp to make sure that's accessible. And then I have a couple thousand subscribers, but I also have a very large following on LinkedIn. So I've been using LinkedIn since its inception, and I would guess I would have just below 14,000 people that could receive that through their link and their connection there.
That's great. Now, was this helped you in any way in attracting clients?
Yeah,
I
I
hope it
think
has.
not.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, but even if nobody read it, I would still have value. So every day when I meditate, I take the messages and the guided meditations and have a takeaway. And I usually have one or two sentences that I take away. And I use that on Mondays as a reflection for my post. So again, even if nobody else ever read it, I would be getting the value. By the time I publish a post, I've reviewed it about 8 times myself. So by internalizing that process myself, it's been value in my own professional and personal life as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I can relate to that because, I had my newsletter for 25 years and I've continued it. I've changed it. It's not about more clients anymore. But writing something on a regular basis and sending it out, I figured that's a no-brainer. It helped me get clear about what I was doing and what was important to me, and it helped me think, and you know, and it helped me get clients as well. But it's interesting that so many people who are otherwise very capable of doing such a thing simply don't do it. And it's like it creates this bridge between you and the rest of the world, and more people are thinking about you, and it creates I don't know, an energy vortex or something that's very beneficial.
Yeah,
And
I think one of the things that you're pointing to is, there's so many coaches that are out there now. So the question of like, why you?
yeah,
And and one way to do that is to put yourself out there. So in your newsletter or in my blog, we have a voice and we have a way that we operate. And when people have that kind of resonate, like, this seems to have a good chemistry. So when we can be intentional about our chemistry with somebody else, they can say, I believe a partnership between us would be valuable. So my discovery process and my blog and my book are ways of me putting my thinking and my approach to achievement out there. And then people can try that on to say, do I believe that not only coaching, but a coaching with you in particular would be helpful? So when you talked about my background, sales and marketing, advertising and promotion, that's something I can say that perhaps other people couldn't say. So
yeah,
in sales, we say, can you pass the so what test? So a lot of people say, I am a coach and I've been doing it a long time and I help lots of people. Well, so
so what?
what? There's 50,000 members and so on. So how do you distinguish? How do you be distinct and not extinct, so to speak?
Yeah,
But at some point in time, it's really a matter of, is this still working for you? And workability and making progress. I like the word progress. So my clients, when they're in action, are they progressing? And if they are, that's what we're shooting for. Not perfect, as they say.
yeah. So I mentioned stories. Let's see if we can dig some up from your subconscious going back, I don't know, recently or a long time ago. But just people you worked with and just giving me a sense of, the process, not in general, but in specific for that person. Can you think of some people?
Well, I'll tell you what, why don't you do this? Why don't you give me a profession and I'll see if I've actually worked with somebody in that profession and give you a story related to that.
Geez, I don't know. Um, I worked with.
I'll give you a story. Ready?
Okay, fine.
Okay. So about 20 something years ago, I was giving a speech. And in that speech, a woman, probably in her mid to late 50s, came up to me after I gave my talk. And it was just, the talk was on personal excellence. And for whatever reason, that really rang a bell for her and a bunch of other folks. And at the end of that, she says, I have 2 companies that I have, and I really like what you had to say. What would it be like to work with our companies? So for the next 3 years, I worked with her 2 different companies. her two sons were part of that organization. At the time, one of the sons was 27 and the other son was 36. And we worked for 3 years to help grow those companies, build their teams, establish the skills of leadership and management and coaching throughout the organization, and really help people kind of work on their capacity to produce results with and through other people within the organization.
So did you work one-on-one and as a group?
I worked with one-on-one. My coaching involves both group coaching for usually the leadership teams and one-on-one with the top people within the organization. So each of those top people would be trained to be a coach for the people that were in their particular groups as well. And then we would come together in a group session, perhaps monthly, in person. So all my coaching for the most part was in person at the time. And only in the last 10 years or so did we incorporate Zoom and Microsoft Teams and things of that sort.
Right.
But what was interesting about that is, although we discontinued our work together after about 3 years, about 4 months ago, the two brothers called me up again. Now they're in Michigan and I'm in Pennsylvania. And they remembered the work we did. And they were going through some challenging times with turnover of people and morale and other things like that. Now, the two brothers are now 47 and 56 years old. And they still use and apply those things that we worked on, but had a new COO and a couple other people within the organization. So the fact that my work was sticky enough for them to want to come back and re-engage and take it to the next level, and saw that the work that they were doing could be complemented with the softer skills of leading and managing and coaching and improving and focusing on key relationships as well. So that was a great acknowledgement in the story of having coaching be a sustainability component to it as well.
Yeah, it's not just a nice thing to have. It's just like if you're an athlete, it's not a nice thing to have a coach. It's a necessity.
Well, think about the coaches, the athletes these days. They have sports psychologists. They have flexibility coaches. They have offense and defensive coaches. They have strategic people. And, a lot of it deals with their mindsets and their attitudes and things of that sort. So although they say, do you have a psychology degree or whatever it is? My first career out of college I was a school teacher.
Oh, really?
Well, in some ways, I'm still somewhat of an educator, supporting the growth and development. The only difference is you are the only student, and you go to the University of Robert, and you get a PhD in V, as they say.
Yes. So, Barry, tell me, what do companies need, and what do people in organizations need more than anything else?
Well, I think this is where you and I are kind of kindred souls. I think the true companies need their soul. When they have a soul and when they have a heart and when they have the connections and the human connections and respect and dignity and humility and making a difference and contributing to one another's. We're all looking for a meaningful and purposeful life. And when our work is meaningful and purposeful, you kind of don't really work a day in your life. So I feel very, very fortunate that I've always been able to do work that had a significant sense of meaning, whether I was a school teacher or even in the pharmaceutical industry where I worked with doctors and hospitals, helping promote ethical pharmaceuticals to help the well-being and the functionality of people in their lives, so to speak. So we all want to make a difference in those communities, and whether that's our families or our local communities or the world at large through our activities. I tend to believe in climate change and things of that sort. So things that I do, not eating red meat or not eating meat, eating more vegetables, recycling things, monitoring my energy use. I took
Yeah.
the auto train instead of driving down to Florida because I know that saves wear and tear and uses less energy and things of that sort as well. So, you know, if Mother Teresa once said, if you sweep your front porch, that's nice. But if 8 billion people sweep their front porch, the world will be a cleaner place. So I'm looking to do my
Yeah.
own, keep my own house in order, so to speak, but also set an example for other people, whether they be my children or my grandchildren or the clients that I work with or just the neighbors that I have in my communities.
Yeah, I'm totally aligned with what you're saying. We want to make the world a better place. We want to make it a happier place. We want to make it a more loving place. But businesses often don't think about that to begin with anyway. Maybe some do. Maybe they have a passion, whoever started the business. But then it's often about, making a lot more money. And a lot of businesses, my sense is, can be a very miserable place to work in. I've hardly worked for any companies. I've been self-employed since I got out of high school. So um, I don't know too much about companies, except I read a lot. And I wonder, is there a shift when you're working with a company and they say, well, we want to be more productive. We want to have um, better profitability. We want these bottom line things, which is reasonable. But so how do you approach that? We can help you do that, but to do that, you tell me, we have to have a purpose and a direction and a meaning and connections. How do you work with all of that so that
Yeah.
happens?
Yeah, I have a proprietary process that I use called a personal excellence training.
Okay.
And this idea of an ordinary vision. So, all my clients that I work with, we go through the process of creating a life vision statement. And the life vision statement is based upon what kind of makes them tick. So, I'll read mine to you. So, my
Great,
life
great.
vision is a healthy, peaceful, beautiful world of extraordinary relationships, great accomplishments, and integrity. An exciting world of respect, dignity, leadership, courage, and honor, where all people generously and passionately contribute their best to one another. So that's been my North Star. That's been my guiding post.
Yeah.
And when I look at any word within that statement, that informs how I behave and how I act in life, so to speak. So when somebody has a sense of, this is who I am, how can I express who I am in what I do? So when we look at organizational missions, we look at the sense of purpose that that organization has, and how can that person's individual vision show up as a contribution to that. And when we feel purposeful and we feel that we are creating some value in people to better their lives, we wake up with a little bit more jump in our step and a little more sense of, this has meaning. This is not a waste of time. This is not just to pay the bills.
Yeah.
It's to improve the life. Now, even in companies, you said to yourself, the majority of people wake up Monday morning and Tuesday morning and Wednesday morning like, I don't want to. Well, what would have people wake up and want to? So when the organizations that we work for are meaningful and purposeful, and when we can grow and learn and evolve and better the company as well as ourselves, of course, we want to send our kids to college and we want to do all kinds of other things and donate to charities and so on.
Sure.
So how does my work become a vehicle for me to live my vision? So the who I am is some work that we can do that a lot of people don't do. And what I do, when we can connect those two, it's a powerful and synergistic approach to achievement.
Did you often work with people that didn't have much connection to, the inner life, the inner striving for the things you just talked about, and you converted them, so to speak?
I don't know if I've converted them. I kind of sometimes ask people to explore different dimensions of their lives. And when you ask people and you get to know them, I mean, I'm talking to my clients an hour a week minimum. And when we talk to them about their world, it could be their children or their dogs or their aging parents or the challenges that they have at work, or their disagreements with their neighbors or colleagues, or whatever it may be. And when you really understand, what they're working on and what would be of benefit and of value to them, they generally go inside relatively easy. Now they could say, I'm not really interested in that. I want to work on my rainmaking and my business development and other things. But if they want to work on those things, they also find that they need to work on and get value from working on their relationships. And if their work relationships improve, where else and how else could they use those skills, those communication tools, to improve their world outside of the working world? So say you want to interact with my teenagers, or my spouse and I have lost the fire, or I'm having challenges with my siblings in dealing with aging parents and things of that sort. So not too many things are off the table. And when they see, what's my developmental journey, they begin to see that there's great value in being the human being that they are, dealing with other human beings. And unless you're a troll under a bridge or a monk or whatever, then you're working in isolation. We're all navigating the world of relationships.
Yeah. So it all comes down to that. How do we get along with people? How do we produce results through people? How do we support people in a way that lifts them up? I mean, these are, explorations that are kind of never-ending depth, right?
It's interesting. In the last 3 or 4 years, my wife and I have moved into two 55 and older communities.
Oh.
And it's been very, very unique and rewarding looking at a dignified process of aging and ongoing contribution and collaboration as we get older. We talk about sandwich generations. I've never been this old before. I think you mentioned in a previous post that I listened to that you're in your early 70s. And in February of this year, I'll be 68 years young, or whatever it would be. And at the same time, in some communities, I'm the young kid. And in other communities, it's like I'm the old man.
Yeah.
But, the name of my book, The Quotable Coach, Daily Nuggets of Practical Wisdom. Kind of like that. I like the idea of seeing the aging process as a component of gaining wisdom, and the wisdom of living well and doing well in the world seems a worthwhile thing to be all of us doing.
What do you think is the most, this is I've worked on personal development since I was like 18 years old. I've lived in 2 spiritual communities. I've done a lot of programs. I've had a few gurus. So, and I often think of this, what's that most important thing? But I'm interested in your take of, what are people missing? That has their life not be fulfilling and loving and exciting. What are they? I'm sure you encounter people that they say, there's not enough, or something's missing, or, what is it that you get people focused on really what matters?
Well, I think you gave the answer. The answer is what matters to you may or may not matter to somebody else.
Right.
But when we think about what matters is what truly satisfies people. And, that quote, the best things in life are not things.
Right.
Well, the things that are not things are what matter to me. Like, for instance, if you've read The 5 Love Languages, that's a book that I recommend for all couples and people in general.
Yep.
And my wife and I have gone through the exercises and so on. But my primary love languages are acts of service. And if anybody wants to show me that they love me, they offer me an act of service. And whether it's making the salad before dinner, or cleaning up the dishes, or just some little thing that they could do as a courtesy, I really, really relate to that. So I try to do that. to show people that I love them. And when we reciprocate in the language that other people have as well, they feel loved as well. You look at all the Beatles songs and the other songs that are written about love. And whether you're religious or spiritual or whatever it would be, what's this journey, going around the sun a few times all about, so to speak? And if you believe in an afterlife or whatever it may be, it's like, we're on this planet in a physical form. The fact that we're even here is a flaming miracle. You have 100 trillion cells that have consciousness, and we can contemplate our place in a universe that is, 93 billion light years across and expanding. Okay, we can think about that. So, to worry about the little worries and whether your house is bigger or your car is fancier or you have an extra zero after your bank account, that becomes a little less meaningful as our toilet paper rolls are winding down, so to speak. So, again, we're space travelers. We're made of space dust. All the chemicals in your body and the amino acids are produced in supernovas. Okay, well, that's a little far out, too. So I like to think about that, and it makes me try to be not quite as significant when I get significant about stuff.
Yeah. Have you watched or looked at some of the pictures from the what's the name of the new telescope?
James Webb.
James Webb. Yeah, not the Hubble, James Webb. Yeah, it's extraordinary, isn't it? I'm also a sci-fi buff. I'm watching the new Dune series, Dune Prophecy. I don't know if you're into that stuff, but sort of mind-bending ideas about what the possibilities are for human beings.
Yeah.
Definitely is interesting to me. So yeah, I've done a lot of work on myself, and obviously you have as well, right? And you're always coming up with wise sayings. I mean, you've got to have one a day, right? So that's interesting. That really gets your brain sort of focused on what's essential.
Well, one of the things that your listeners and viewers can do is that if they went to the website, thequotablecoach.com, they could scroll down a half a page, and there's a little down arrow that says categories. So I've sorted all of my work from the last 14 years into just over 200 categories of quotes. And if you click on any one word, it will take you to everything I ever wrote on that particular subject. So if you were giving a talk or a speech on stress or health or relationships or coaching or fear or worry, you could click on that and gain some perspective or insight into that and go a little bit deeper. Some of the other coaches that I've worked with, the greatest acknowledgement is when they kind of go to your website and check you out. But I encourage those people to, take that stuff. And as long as you give credit to whoever's quote it was or whoever wrote what it was, use it and share it to better your world, so to speak. So I really like the idea of, you've read the book, The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. Well, I believe there are tipping point people. You're a tipping point person. You've been working in your profession, writing your newsletters and doing your work and continue to do your work in your 70s. You don't have to do that, but it's meaningful and purposeful, and people listen. You have lots of people that go to this resource and check it out, and they find value in that, so to speak.
Yeah.
And
at least I hope they do.
Makes you feel good. That's why you're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's people like you and me are compelled to share and help. Who knows why? That's just how we turned out. I mean, that's not true for everybody. I think everybody wants to make a contribution. But I'm always looking at an idea and expanding out the idea, and then I throw it into ChatGTP and I say, write an article about that for me, and it expands it even more. And I have
Well,
so much fun.
you're like a flame, and when you light the candle of another person, the light you're not diminished, and they're not diminished, and you just put out more light into the world.
Yeah,
And in these days, I think we need a little bit more light because there's some darkness out there, and
there's a
people
lot
like
of
yourself.
darkness out there. And American society is, I don't know, there's a lot of anti-light propensities. It's and I blame social media to some degree. It's like everyone has to seem to attack everybody and correct everybody, and I'm so tired of that. I'm just not on social media hardly ever because of that. I don't know, this propensity of wanting to be right all the time is so destructive, as opposed to I just want to help. I want to I want to lift people up, not be right about something. How does that get us anywhere? Anyway,
Well, it's natural for people to look at things through whatever lens they have and feel right about it. But while we're doing that, we're making others that don't think that same way wrong.
exactly.
You know, I found your writings about the Stoics and Marcus Aurelius fascinating because it allowed you to look at the different perspectives that we could have at this point in our world as to how to navigate things in a perhaps more enlightened and appropriate way to move forward and reconcile all the things that we agree with and disagree with, so to speak. So these again are interesting times, but people are open-minded and receptive and evolving and mindful and self-aware. Usually hopefully have their highest self put out the light and set an example for other people to turn up their flames as well.
Yeah, there's so much wisdom in the world. So many brilliant books that have been written, so many teachers, so many enlightened souls. There's no scarcity of that. And if you look for it, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. But we're so addicted to physical reality, you know, of survival and getting ahead. I don't know. And we have to survive. We do need to get ahead in a sense. But how do we do that and remain sane and happy? And it's anyway. And there's no final answer. You know, maybe there is a final answer. I don't know, but
Well, there was a book that was written years ago, and I think there's a newer version called Finite and Infinite Games.
heard of that.
Finite games has winners and losers, but an infinite game, doesn't end. And the purpose of an infinite game is to keep playing. So in many ways, I think life and our universe is kind of an infinite game. And we're here for as long as we're here to contribute and put our energies forth. And we'll never see the fruit from the trees that we plant or whatever it will be. But it's about the kind of the journey that we're on, that we feel good about the steps along the way, that we've made our attempts and efforts at improving and easing the suffering of even one person. So each time you do a newsletter, each time you do a podcast, each time I write a blog, each time I coach an individual, we're making our little deposits into that reservoir. And hopefully that person kind of takes it and runs with it and pays it forward. So as we help people live better lives, they're improving the lives of other people and their families and in their communities. And then, even if you look at the coaching profession and how it's grown and evolved, people are hungry for that. They're hungry for their personal excellence journey and that gold medal life and to contribute and make a dent in the universe if you look at Jimmy Carter, who just passed away, he did so much more even after his presidency, whether it's the Nobel Peace Prize or the Carter Center or his humanitarian efforts. Well, that's
Habitat
a
for
great role
Humanity.
model.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and he kept doing stuff right to the very end, practically. So, yeah, that's but there's so many people like that we don't hear enough of. In the news, we hear about the crappy things that are happening, and so much. I don't know
Well,
if you.
unfortunately, if it bleeds, it leads
Yes,
is very much the vernacular. I tend to try to approach my media exposure to the ones that tend to be as objective as possible and as truth based and as fact based as possible. You talked about Chat GPT. I use a platform called Perplexity, which is an AI that's also well referenced and things of that sort,
right.
to get some of my information. Hopefully, most of it is accurate and somewhat more objective than the left or the right or whatever it may be. But we're all doing the best that we can, and knowing that people are still on their journeys. You and I are still helping people on their journeys as well as being on our own journeys and being works in progress until they throw dirt in our face, as they say. But I think this is a great way to live my life. And other people still want to chat with me and still have something within them that they're interested in pursuing. So you're not giving up by any means, and neither am I.
Right, right.
Neither of us have to work, which is great. And yet we choose to do things that fill our days with purpose. And, I admire that in other people.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to talk to people that have that perspective. I mean, Ordinary Visionaries resonated with people. Yeah, I'm an ordinary person, yet I have visions. I want to make a difference. I want to lift things up. And there are a lot of people like that. And some people have no frickin' idea what that means, but oh well.
Well, I think if you have a chat with anybody, if you get on an airplane or just have a chat with somebody and
Sure.
you show genuine interest and listen to, their life's experiences and so on, you'll get a sense of their humanity and their highest self and where and how they're volunteering. And I mean, everybody has a story to tell.
Yeah.
And I think one of the nice things about your Ordinary Visionary program is that you give people an outlet for sharing one version of a story out of 8 billion people, stories that are out there, so to speak. And there's
Yeah.
great courage and great contribution going on that we'll never see. And at the same time, you're impacting people whose efforts and work you'll never know, how much fruit will be bared by that. But we do know that if you and I stop, we won't be watering and tending to the seeds that are germinating under the surface.
Yeah. Well, it's sure better than sitting around and watching television all day. That's for sure.
At least if you watch television, you can watch, as high quality. I tend to watch a lot of documentaries.
Sure.
I recently watched the National Geographic documentary called Endurance about Ernest Shackleton and his
Oh, yeah.
exploits in Antarctica.
Oh, yeah.
That would be one that I would recommend, is worth the time.
So, Barry, it's been fun talking to you. Nice to see a fellow traveler on the road to making things, lifting things up, shall I say.
Well, this may sound corny, but when you say namaste, the person in me honors the person in you, and I appreciate you doing the work that you do, and my wanting to talk with you in a collaborative way is a sign of my respect for the work that you've done these many, many decades. And the fact that you continue that is very honorable. So thank you for that. And thank you for this opportunity to be on your program.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you very much.